没烦到谁啊
マジ暇すぎて死にそう
배고파 죽겠어.
I'd rather die.
Why is
So
it all the
that's a-
same? Eat well and live well, but you're actually saying F off.
Oh,
But there's different levels. There's like your mum's.
Oh,
Okay.
whoa.
There's your mum's smelly.
Welcome to the Asian Soup Podcast. This is your co-host Jules.
And this is your co-host Rox.
The Asian Soup Podcast is your cozy space on the internet where we share and discover stories about one another.
We chat about a range of topics, some serious and some not so serious.
Come sit with us.
Why did I want to say
Do I
that?
say it?
You say it.
Oh, do I?
I never say it.
Come sit with us and get nourished.
I usually say get nourished. Anyways. Yeah, welcome to the pod again. We have a special guest today, Inah. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back.
Inah's been a guest on the show before, and we spoke about, I don't know what, I forgot.
We spoke about first impressions and your
yes.
Japanese Australian experience growing up
We did.
in
First
Sydney.
impressions.
That's
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
yeah.
So go back and watch that if you want to kind of get to know Inah a bit more.
It's our last episode of the season. So episode 25 of season 2 or episode 50. So yeah.
That's crazy.
just wanted to-
Well done. It's not easy to keep going with these things, so
Yeah.
should feel proud.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for everyone for still listening to us. It's been really fun.
Yeah, I think it's easier to start a podcast, but to continue is not easy. So I feel very, very accomplished just saying that out loud that we've done
Yeah.
50 episodes.
Yeah.
That's
I can't even
massive.
believe it. I'm like, did we really do 50?
Yeah,
in my head.
I know. It's like, are you sure it's not like 30?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't feel like that. But yeah, it's been fun.
So back to the topic.
Back to the topic. So today we're going to talk about getting lost in translation, which is perfect topic for us because we all kind of speak different languages, and we're going to kind of talk about any funny sayings in each other's languages and what it's like being English speakers as well and growing up in Australia and yeah, all that kind of stuff. So firstly, I'll kind of come at it from a Cantonese perspective, I guess, because that's my second language. And then Jules.
I speak Korean, so I can talk about my English and Korean experiences.
Yeah.
But I can also speak conversational Japanese.
Yeah.
So I can relate to things that Inah would say, which
Yeah.
I just spoiled it, but
So I speak Japanese and obviously English. So they're my two languages. I am half Korean as well, but I don't speak any Korean. So not even conversational. I can say 안녕하세요 and like 감사합니다.
and all the food.
Yes, because that is very important. But yes, so that's me.
First segment, we're going to talk about some mean and brutal sayings. So I think, Rox, you had some good ones. Did you want to go
try.
first?
I'll try to go first. I mean, this topic kind of came about because we were brainstorming ideas in the car, and I was like, oh, there's like this saying in Chinese or Cantonese when you tell people to go away, like say they're in your way. You could just say go away, like, which is han hoi la, which is walk away la, because in Cantonese we like adding la and stuff in conversational speaking. But if you wanted to be more mean, you could say, I feel like a bit like crass saying it, but I'll say but like it's not a swear word, but it just sounds like something like an old man, old like man on the street might say, you
Okay.
know, not like a girl shouldn't say this, you know.
Yeah.
Anyways, hopefully you understand. But it's like there's two types. It's like lan hoila, which is crawl away like a worm, not a worm, like you're struggling to crawl away. And then another one is like say hoila, which is die and get away.
It's like the only way you're going to get away is
Say
through...
hoila. It's like that. It's like lan hoila, zao hoila.
It
Or
doesn't
like we just go
sound
away.
very aggressive.
It
like,
doesn't sound very aggressive. It could, yeah.
because I'm just thinking about potentially like the English version
Yeah.
of that, maybe like, you guys like
Yeah.
an explicit podcast? Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, you can swear.
Yeah.
It's kind of the get effed, or like,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
or like go F yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, and that's always said quite, you know, in an
Yeah.
emotional, emotive, like an angry way.
Yeah.
But the way that you just said that was not,
Yeah, it
I
wasn't.
wouldn't have guessed
Because
that
I
somebody
was
saying
not
that to me.
giving that tone, but
Oh,
it could
okay.
be. But then the thing is, if English you say get effed,
Yeah.
or you say F off or whatever, but then that goes into like rude words territory, which there's a lot of in Cantonese.
Oh, as well. Okay.
As well.
Oh, interesting.
That I'm not an expert at, but when I did live in Hong Kong and work with certain people, I was like, wow, I'm learning a lot, because there were words I just didn't even understand that were rude words. And
Yeah.
it's not just the typical like F off, or like F your mum. It's more like there's a more color to
Yeah.
it, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could add the word death to anything. So I could be like, you're so annoying. Like, if I just say you're so annoying, it's你好煩啊, which is you very annoying. Or I could be like, 哇你煩到我死啊, or 你煩到死, which is you're so annoying, I'm gonna die. You know, like you can add die to anything. 我好攰死人啊, like I'm so tired that I'm gonna die. Or 肚餓到死, which is I'm so hungry I could die. So like just you could add die to everything, kind of.
Yeah.
I think that exists in Japanese as well.
What does can you just try to say it? Because I want to hear it.
Like,
Yeah.
お腹すきすぎて死にそう.
Ah.
I'm so hungry, I'm gonna die soon. Or マジ暇すぎて死にそう. I'm so bored, I'm about to die. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's
like
like
that.
so that's a thing. That's actually it's not that rude though.
It's not that rude.
I think you just that's more of a, in Japanese anyway, it's
Yeah.
more of a like a
Expression.
statement, that you
Yeah,
say
yeah.
to kind of communicate the extremity of like how you're feeling a certain way.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
Korean's the same. Like 배고파 죽겠어.
Oh.
I'm so hungry, I'm gonna die.
Yep.
Or
Yeah.
심심해 죽겠어. I'm so bored, I'm gonna die. Why
Yeah,
is
so
it all the
that's a-
same?
But do we say that
Yeah.
in English? Do we
No,
say?
I don't
Sometimes do we?
I
Do
feel
we ever
like
say it?
I might have said it like, oh, I'm so hungry, I'm gonna die. I feel like I might have said that in
Translating.
my younger self, but you know, as an older person, you sort of realize, I'm not saying I'm super old or anything, but like as you mature, you're like, hang on a minute, this doesn't really make sense in English.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever find that? Like, did you guys ever say, oh, I'm so hungry, I'm gonna die? Have you ever said
Not
that in
in
English?
English.
I don't know that I have said that, but I'm just trying to think maybe like of boredom or something. I feel like I've seen maybe not I'm going to die, but maybe like a similar kind of expression
Yeah.
being used. I can't think
Yeah.
of exactly what that was, but
I wonder if it's like, oh, I'm so hungry, and it's like dying emoji, like or like
Yeah.
something.
Well, sometimes you might say like, oh, I'm dying. Like in response to something. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
like funny.
like funny, like, oh, I'm dying.
I'm
or,
dying, yeah.
Or it could be, I'm so tired, like I'm so dead.
yeah.
But
That's true.
that's all I can think
Yes.
of.
And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
actually
oh, no,
English,
you go.
right?
Yeah.
They're,
English.
they're real English
Real
expressions.
English.
Yeah, real English
Yeah.
expression. Actually, I think what I'm thinking of is I wish I were dead, right? Like that's, I think
yeah,
that's
yeah.
used
Oh, yeah, that's
more.
a saying.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, this person is so boring. I wish I was dead. I don't know, actually. I just said that
Something
out
like
loud
that.
and it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
sound right, but I feel like that could be something.
That someone
I want to
has
die
said,
right
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Sometimes people
Yeah.
say that. Yeah. I'd rather die or something.
Yeah, I'd rather die. Yeah, so it is like death is, I think, maybe universal in these kinds of
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah.
It sounds like it.
But the crawling, like going back to what Rock said, can you say that again? So crawl and die? Crawl away and die.
No,
Or-
it's just two different. Lan Hyla is crawl away, get like crawl and get out of my way. Say hola is just like die and get out of my way. Yeah. Like you're in my way, like get out. It's like
really
get out of the
extreme.
way kind of
It's
thing.
really extreme.
So what I can think of something similar is 잘 먹고 잘 살아라. Eat well and live well, but you're actually saying F off.
really?
Does that
Oh,
make
that's
sense?
so
So it's
random.
like 잘 먹고 잘 살아라, but it's almost being sarcastic. It's like go live your life well, go eat well, live well.
Yep.
Go mind your business kind of thing. Go live your life. I'll go live my life.
Wow.
So that's
okay.
what
That's
I thought of.
interesting.
When,
That's very civil. Like,
Yeah.
but it's because it's sarcastic. It's like
It's an obvious mean thing to say.
you would say it, you know, as a finale kind of thing. Like, you know,
like
you're already
that's
fed
the last
up.
word.
Yeah. So it's similar, like go crawl, but you wouldn't say it to somebody that you bump into on the street.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
there's more meaning and relationship.
I
you
think
mean
so.
like okay, yeah.
I think so. It doesn't apply to a stranger.
What about like if you're driving and you know they're like yelling at you through the window? Is that like would you go and tell them like mind your own business? Like kind of
Yeah.
like would you use it in that kind of context?
No. You would use
okay.
something else.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I guess I can't think of anything else mean and brutal right now, but I guess in general Cantonese there's a lot of las at the end of things when speaking.
So if you add la, does that make it rude?
no. It's
oh.
still no, it's just I'm just saying like in general like speaking there's like I don't know.
What purpose does that sound serve?
It's not really, it's a word. It is a word as well, but it's more casual speaking.
Okay.
I'm not a linguist, so I can't explain it properly, but it's like colloquial. There's colloquial Cantonese speaking, and then there's like formal, like if you're presenting the news or writing, like,
Right.
yeah. But conversational, there's a lot of like, yeah, that kind of thing. But I'm not very good at explaining it right now
I
or giving
imagine
more
la-
examples.
Imagine la to be used when it's more colloquial, auntie saying la la la, and as soon as they say it, it becomes more comfortable. Or is it? Can you just say it to any?
You can say it in a lot of ways. So it's like, have you eaten dinner? Or食咗飯啦? Or食咗飯啦? Or it's like,食咗啦. It's like, it's almost, it depends on how you use it, but it's just, it just comes out. I don't know why. But yeah, is there any other mean?
Because
or
I've
brutal
seen
thing?
I've seen like my Chinese friends add la in English as well. They'll just be like la la la, and then
Yeah.
they'll be like la, right? And
Yeah.
I just thought that's their way of being like friendly. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I took that kind of a similar nuance away, thinking that it was just, you know, the way that they would speak to like a friend or somebody that's close to you. But I have always wondered what it actually means. I just kind of thought it was just a sound, but what is the actual word? Like, what does it mean?
There's a character for it. Like there's a character for it, but I don't know what meaning. There's no actual meaning to me. I don't know if there's any meaning. It's just something to add at the end of something.
Wow. Okay.
It's if you're actually reading like a book or newspaper, there won't be any las. It's just in speaking. Actually, in Mandarin, there's a le, which is liu, which is at the end of a sentence. Sometimes that happens like something past tense, like this is finished, liu, which is like, I think la may have come from that, and then it's like, okay, something's happened, or do something, or something like that. I don't know. I'm really bad at explaining it.
It's la. So I know
Yeah.
this is like become a whole la segment, but
yeah.
I must know.
Yeah.
But does la work standalone? Like,
No.
can you just say la?
No,
Oh, no.
it has to be at the end of something.
Yeah, because I was thinking ne for Japanese. You can add ne or la la ne. You can add ne, but then you can use ne as a question as well, like ne.
Ne? Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I
Yes,
wonder
yeah.
if la. I wonder if la's the same.
La isn't usually used in a question. Usually it's used in a response or something. And there's also like other things that are like la, and or there's something that can be stuck to la, which I can think of, which
Stuck
is
to
really,
la.
really silly because my Canto is so bad. So I'll just say that now. But if someone's like, oh, did you pack your clothes or something? I was like, or did you do something? I can say takala, which is gala. The ga is also random. Like the ga has no the ga has no meaning. But that is like it's done. Like it's okay. Okay, gala, which is like it'll be fine. Like it'll be fine. Like yeah, there's like other things that that are added randomly. Yeah.
So we definitely don't have that in Japanese, I don't think.
I know in Japanese, I think I can speak for Japanese because I actually studied it. Whereas, when you've just learnt it phonetically and growing up, it's harder to explain.
Yeah.
But I know in Japanese, you've got like n, you add nda, like you add the n sound, and that has like meaning as well.
Sound.
Like n. So
Like when you're agreeing to something.
you would add it like nda or ndes. Like you add it as part of this maybe. Like taberunda. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Wait, I think I made a word up.
No, taberunda. But that's a grammar thing,
Yeah,
isn't
grammar
it?
thing.
Yeah, but that's
What
that's
does that
got
mean?
it's just
Taberunda. Like, oh, you're eating it. Isn't that what it
yeah,
means?
kind of like if it's got the upward kind of sound at the end, it sounds a bit like a question.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, are you gonna eat that? It's like, I suppose it's a bit like taberunda.
Yeah, but it's not like taberu. It's taber, like the nda has a different meaning.
Yeah, but it's in line with just the tenses and the way that you use the word though, because like taberu is eat. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, with English as well. We can say eat, eaten, ate. And like we differentiate the way that we use them depending on the tense, right? So it's the same. So taberundes or yeah. I suppose you could say what's the difference between tabemasu and taberundes.
Yeah, what is the difference?
Tabemasu is more about the actual action. So you are trying to communicate that you have the intention of eating it or you are going to eat it. Taberundes that's a hard one. I think it's more around the nuance of kind of explaining what it is that you do with something. So if tabemasu would be like, I'm going to eat dinner, like yoru gohan tabemasu. But if somebody said, what are you going to do with that? You say taberundes. Like that I think that's the kind of different types of context. It's more about answering to somebody maybe asking you what you're going to do with that thing, or
There's like context behind it.
yeah,
Like
I feel like
so going back to like taberunda, it's more like, like you're eating it.
yeah.
Like almost thinking you thought they weren't going to eat it.
Yeah.
So that's when you use it.
Yeah, or if it's like, if somebody, had slime or something that looked like it wasn't food and somebody picked it up and started eating it, you'd be like, oh,
I'm eating that.
oh my God. Yeah, is that like, or you might say tabererunda means like you can actually eat that. Is kind of the two different things. But that's just in the context of taberu. I think that you can use the nda thing for anything though.
Yeah, I remember it was really tricky to
Harukunda.
learn. I was like,
Yeah.
what does this mean? Like you have to hear it in action to sort of start getting the nuances.
Yeah, that's true.
But in a list of grammar, you're
Yeah.
like, all the different grammars, you're like, what does nda mean?
Yeah, that's true though. I've been thinking this whole time about what would be the English equivalent, like, what the grammar is, because we've got like 12 tenses in English as well. I don't
we? Oh my
think.
gosh.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
we got 4 versions of each, past, present, and future. So, which I think our generation doesn't know that much of, because I think we're the generation where grammar was not a massive part of our primary school education. It would change now. But yeah, I only know this because of obviously my teaching experience. But yeah, so we've got 12, but I don't think it fits into those either. So taberunda, it's not a tense thing, it's a contextual thing. Yeah.
Thank you for explaining that. I always wanted to know. But going back onto topic, brutal sayings. Inah, do you have anything that comes to mind when you think about brutal sayings? It doesn't have to be even like literally a swear word or anything like that. But because
we're
this
not really
is like
talking about swearing. Yeah.
it's more expression. These are more expressions that are just brutal, and you're like, whoa, that's like
that's
deep.
mean.
Yeah, that's really mean.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that there are words that are like swear words in Japanese anyway. Like we don't have an equivalent of like a like, you know, don't say this. It really, there's a lot of stuff around like gender. So the way that you would say something as a male, a female might not say. I think that's becoming a bit less that way. You know, we're in 2024. But there's still much more of that sense of like femininity and masculinity in Japanese. But in terms of like brutal things, they just kind of stem from real words but have been shortened. So they like shortening a lot of things over there, both good and bad. Like, and also I think it's like Australian people, I think, like that say avo and arvo and whatnot, but Japanese people do that too. And I'd say one of them I can think of is like kimoi, which stems from a word which is kimochi warui, which means it's like kind of disgusting, but in a like a squirmish kind of way. I suppose it's kind of like ew, like in English. But yeah.
Kimochi waru is an interesting expression because kimochi actually means feeling.
Yes.
Like literally, kimochi waru is feeling bad.
Yeah, feeling bad. And because you can
Literally.
and also say kimochi ii as well, which means feel good. So
How would you say that in a mean way? Like, how would you say that in a what would the context be?
So it would need to be very contextual. So because I can say to my husband, for example, in like a joking way, like kimo, if he does something like
you just say kimo. That's
kimo,
what
or kimoi, but that would not be taken, you know, in that really negative, brutal sense. It would
you're
probably
just
be a
joking.
stronger word than what I would usually use. But it wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that to me. But I think, so it's all contextual, but I think what I think about is like if somebody's being bullied or there's like a level of maybe a bit of truth to it, like even if it's to do with their appearance or their mannerisms or I don't know, like their behavior. So if there's, I think that can be quite a strong thing. I suppose the other thing that I just thought of is also uzai. So these are two words that have been around for a long time, and uzai has more to do with behavior and the way they are, and it points to being annoying. But it's a stronger word than annoying. Like you're being really uzai. Again, but I could say that to my husband.
Yeah.
And it'd
it can
be
always
okay.
Be a fun,
Yeah.
fun thing.
But I wouldn't, it would take a lot for me to say that to somebody who probably wasn't him. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I was trying to think as you said that, what are some brutal Japanese sayings? And the only thing I could think of is like, okay, firstly, you need to probably think of the comment section in YouTube or like that's where people write the really
That's
nasty
true.
things.
Yeah.
And I was sort of picturing things like you'll say something and then you'll add like lol at the end, like warai, like this warai, which is like the it's like one character, and you add it to the end of the sentence, which means lol. But it's like the use. You know how when you say something and you say lol,
It doesn't make it any better.
it turns it into what do you had like even in English it's the same, right? Lol can be used to make fun of someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I could think of in Japanese, like da 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 da. Warai.
Which is like we used that way before lol was like socially acceptable here because
Yeah.
it was around, and then it was like, I can't believe you're saying lol. Like that's an internet
so
thing,
true.
right? But now people say lol. I suppose in Japanese you wouldn't say wara, but that concept of like lol and warai was around for a really long time. They don't even use the character anymore. They just use W.
Oh.
You know, yeah. But I think another one is maybe quiero, which means disappear. Like, yeah, disappear, which is very like
Similar.
maybe similar to the death thing. But I think it also depends on the culture of like where you are in Japan too. Because it reminded me of an experience that Rai had in Japan. So Rai is my brother and Julia's partner, for anybody's watching it for the first time. But my mum, like our mum, is from Osaka, so we went there every year, and we would go to a local school while we were there every year. So I spent like 2 weeks at a local Japanese school, which was like the best experience because I made some like lifelong friends. So as my brother was in year 1, I think mum was just like, oh, you should go too. And he went, and I think he maybe went for 3 years consecutively, but I quite distinctly remember him being quite shocked, like culture shocked and upset, because his classmates would say things like shine, which means go die, or like korosuzo, which means I'm gonna kill you, like all the time, like to each other. And
in a jokey way or
probably
in a mean way?
Yeah, I mean they're not, I mean they're
just
like
kids,
6.
though. That's
yeah,
crazy.
they're like
That's pretty
6.
mean for
yeah.
kids. Yeah.
But I think that was like normal. So even now I hear sometimes my cousins that say things like that, even as adults, because that was their culture, and it like kind of shocks me because it's just like, oh, that's like seems really extreme to be talking about, you know, something very small. But I think in their cultural context or their upbringing, that's the norm. So they don't think anything of it. It would, for them, it feels like, you know, disappear, go die is just like, oh, you're so annoying.
daily
Like they
saying.
would be,
Yeah. It's not
like
really
on
about
par.
death.
Exactly. So it depends, huh? Because I don't think that happens in places like Tokyo, for example. It would be quite different depending on the area, at least in Japan anyway.
Interesting. There's some similarities there, I think,
For
maybe.
sure.
Yeah.
How about
I was thinking about Korean brutal saying. So yeah, definitely the usage of die is common, but I think Korean is kind of easy because there's just straight up so many swear words.
Oh, right.
Even have you heard of people say like aish? Have you heard that? Aish.
Yeah.
Aish. Even that is like,
That's a swear word?
it's not a swear word, but it's the bit that you say before you swear. So aish, like the she is like the beginning of the swear word, so it's rude.
Oh.
okay.
Yeah.
Is that kind of like when you say
Yeah, it's like that. It's exactly like that.
so you know what they're going to say,
Yeah.
but they're like trying to stop themselves from saying it?
Well, I think it's come a bit further to the point where aish is like its own thing.
Okay, so-
Aish, like you, because you just say it, so kids will pick it up easily, not knowing what that actually means. Like I think I didn't connect it to the swear word for the longest time until my mum was like,
Don't say
"Yeah,
that.
don't say that." And I was like, "Oh, why?" Thought it was just a cute expression, but it's not. But yeah, with Korean, it's definitely like there's there's S word, and then there's the cat, like the dog word.
It's the S word. You're saying like shit? Or you're saying this S word in Korean.
the Korean.
But what's the back meaning of that? Is that like the F word in English?
I think it's like you can call someone the S word in Korean.
Yeah.
So I'll say it a more polite way, which is
You don't have to say the whole thing.
well, the
If it
replacement
feels
word.
weird,
The
yeah.
replacement word is shinbal, which it sounds like this S word sounds like shinbal, and shinbal actually means shoe. So, but the real swear word is actually something else, but it sounds like shoe.
Yeah.
And people would use that to like, oh, maybe it's like the equivalent of like you effer kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you've got the dog word, like sanaba, dog kind of,
Yeah.
that expression.
Yeah.
But you could say dog like care in front of like lots of different expressions. Like I was mentioning to you guys earlier, like care mashiso is like, oh, it's shit good kind of thing. Like it tastes so good, but it's a bit rude. But if you, I don't know, if someone starts using a lot of these expressions, like I guess it's like in English as well. Some people use the F word in every second like word in their sentence. It's like the similar thing. Like you can start adding.
Yeah.
It depends on the context. So if that person's angry and they're using every second word is one of these swear words, then it's like, whoa. Like as a Korean Australian person, I'm just like, whoa, I didn't even know you could construct an angry sentence like that with so many swear words. And I really think that Korean
Very creative.
swearing is very creative. Swearing in Korean is like, I don't know why, but it feels so much more
Powerful. Mean.
potent. It feels
Potent,
so much
yeah.
more potent than in English. I don't know what
Same-
it is.
Same as Cantonese
Yeah.
as well. When I hear it, it's like if I said it, I would feel gross.
You get a
like
bit like,
I'm like,
oh,
ugh.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's like like that. It's not cringe. It's like, ugh. I
Yeah,
can't-
yeah, like
I
kinda
shouldn't say
like
that. Like I'm in
goosebumps,
trouble.
like
yeah.
whoa, like
There are words like that in English as well, right? Like I can think of one
yeah.
That's
in
one.
particular. Yeah. But I'm sure there are more. But it's
Yeah.
I think that one.
Yeah.
The 4-letter.
Yes. Yeah. I
So
don't
that-
even like
that
with C,
word.
yeah.
That C word is actually very prevalent in Cantonese swearing. And I didn't know until I lived there.
Wow.
But there's different levels. There's like your mum's.
Oh,
Okay.
whoa.
There's
Okay.
your mum's smelly. There's they say it like there's another one that's like comparing it to a pig's
Oh my god.
like you pig C word.
I'm curious to know
So-
at what kind of like conversation level, like anger level one needs to be like at that point of using it. Or maybe I won't fully understand because
That you
it's
can
not.
you can do F your mum's smelly C word
Oh my goodness.
as a like that's one like creative way to say something. But you could also I've just heard people say this and it's like, oh, he's such a pig C word. What a pig C word he is or something. Or
and
or
that's
like-
a hierarchy thing, right? Like
It just
pigs
depends.
is worth.
I don't know.
okay,
Just
right.
because I don't use it. I don't use it, so I don't know.
Yes.
But something else that's really weird is like that word for C because it. So say like there's a north, east, south, west. West is say. So dong lam. No, dong. Wait, dong lam say. But so say is west. So say rhymes with the C word. So the C word is, imagine me saying say, which is west, but with an H. That say is the C word. But sometimes people will just say, like the west, use the character west and like just say it, but mean the C word, Like
So much creativity
just
in
and
all
you
of
don't-
this,
and
isn't it?
you won't even know until like unless you know that person swears a lot or you kind of hear it more.
Yeah.
Do you hear this more on the street or like in the workplace? Maybe your colleagues like writing a raging email or
Oh no, not
dramas.
email, definitely
Like
not
no, like
email.
when someone's pissed, like they're writing something different, but they're saying something different out of their mouth. Is it something more that you actually hear in passing, or is it something that you saw more in like dramas and on TV?
It's not on TV.
It's
'Cause
not
it's
on
bad.
TV.
Oh, okay,
okay.
yeah.
Because it's bad. Like maybe it's on in movies. Like actual movies and they're like gangsters and stuff. But apart from that, like that's why in my head the people that would say this is like an old angry man or like construction. Like I'm being very like or people on the street having a fight or but then people like why I know this is because like I had a colleague at an old workplace, but he would just say this in like his own way of talking, not in a rude way.
Yep.
to me. It's not saying anything about me. He might be like talking about something and then it would just slip in.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and like, it'll just slip into to whatever is happening. And I'm like,
just slip it in.
oh, okay. And then like he's not actually angry. He's just saying, he's just swearing.
Yeah, I suppose
that's just swearing.
That happens with the F word
English.
here
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, yeah.
Like you know, F and this, F and that, and you know, but they're not like actually that
saying
angry or anything
yeah.
like it. You know, if you just took that out, it would actually be like a pretty normal sentence.
Yeah, which is why sometimes people are like, do you need to say that?
Yeah.
It's like,
It might be a generational thing too, because
Yeah.
I think I don't think that the FN thing happens that much in like younger people.
That's so true.
I feel
That's
like
true.
maybe it is like a certain generation, just a little bit above us.
and it's
Right?
interesting,
Yeah,
right?
I
'Cause
agree.
the C word is a really big deal, and it's like you almost don't want to say that in front of women. I feel like
That-
women get offended, right?
Oh yeah. That's a that's a sexist
Yeah.
thing, right? But I suppose it's kind of like the use of they would consider it the same as the use of the D word, right? Like you're being
D-head.
yeah, exactly.
I'm like, oh, that's more warranted. That can be used. But yeah.
But yeah.
Lost in translation. When I think of that, lots of different things come to mind. I'm thinking like phrases in Korean that don't translate into English or even the other way around, but also like lost in translation when you're communicating with your parents, for example, who are immigrants, and you know, I'm Korean Australian, so you can only like we speak in Korean, we chat on Katok, which is like our chat platform app in Korean, but you can't help but have things lost in translation. And they might be saying something that, I don't know, they might be saying something, but I might completely take it the wrong way. You can't help but, you don't know, because it's not even like there's a mediator in between, like a translator saying, hey, hang on, actually, she actually meant this.
Yeah.
You know? Do you, well, I actually wanted to throw it to Rox. Like, do you have any instances where you feel like things have lost in translation between you and your parents, or maybe
I think
with
it's
other
hard because
people?
I don't chat in Cantonese or Chinese, like in the WhatsApp. We do English because I can't actually write much. I can use pinyin from what I've learned in Mandarin to kind of write some things, but it takes too long for me. So I just write in English. But when we speak, maybe there's more things lost in translation when we're speaking. But in general, if it's just speaking, I think we understand enough. But it might be hard, say, if they're asking about something that is in English, or like a, I don't know, like my mom's asking about something in English, then I'm trying to explain it to her.
Yeah.
Then like she always pronounces something different, and I'm like, no, you mean this, and then I'm like, what are you talking about? So that will get lost in translation.
Yeah. I think I used to write in English, but then I've recently discovered the dictation button on my phone. And I've also realized that you can use it for Korean as well. So lately I've been writing Korean text messages, but I'm not typing it.
That's pretty good.
I'm just using the dictation. So I would be like, 엄마 어디야? 지금 어디 있어? 토요일 점심 같이 먹을래? Which is basically saying, hey mom, where are you? Do you want to have Saturday breakfast together? And it's like written in perfect spelling,
Wow.
which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Because if I write something like, hey mom, where are you? Do you want to meet or something?
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel as, I don't know, I feel like Korean's a bit more softer and more loving speaking it to my parents, because that's the language you use, and I think there is something more soft about Korean. So yeah, that's something that I've been doing. But I know Inah, Inah speaks English and Korean like perfectly. You know how
Japanese.
usually
Japanese.
oh sorry, what did I say?
Korean. You said Korean.
Like perfectly Japanese and English. You know how usually you speak English better or your Asian language better?
Yeah.
Inah is like one of those
Perfect in both.
like geniuses who can do
Yeah.
both.
Wow.
I know I'm
I
talking you up, but you
Ah.
you can pass as a Japanese person and as a Aussie person. So, and Inah does translating on the side. So I'm curious to hear for you, do things get lost in translation when you chat with your mum?
I think less with mum because I don't know about you, but I don't think we talk about like super deep topics or, you know, when we are talking, it's not really out of context. Like we're talking about something.
Yeah.
But something that I do get not annoyed, but sometimes I realize is with my husband. So
Do you want to tell our listeners what language you speak with your husband?
Oh, yeah. So my husband's Japanese, fully Japanese. So he came to Australia almost 14 years ago, which I know sounds like a really long time, but I think a lot of people who have been here for like that amount of time will say it's not very long when you talk about like a language acquisition.
Yeah.
And while he works in like a local company and he's surrounded by like Aussie guys and whatnot. Obviously it's very much his second language. So we speak Japanese at home. And I have to say we've been together for almost 14 years and my Japanese has probably improved more because I had a solid foundation and we all speak to my daughter, like our daughter, in Japanese as well. So we speak Japanese pretty much 100% at home unless we're out and about. And when it gets into kind of heated moments, because, you know, as husband and wife do, you know, you have your arguments, and I think that's definitely when I feel like my English just like coming up to here, but knowing that that's not the language I want to use because he won't fully understand the meaning. So I'll be trying to do some like interpreting in my head and trying to communicate my needs or, you know, whatever it is that I'm frustrated about in Japanese. But sometimes it might not come out the way that I had intended, or the way that he understands it is different, or he doesn't understand something and he'll be like, I don't know what you're saying, or like, you need to say it like this. And I get frustrated.
Even more annoyed.
Yeah. Well, even if it's that all of that isn't happening all at once, but I get annoyed because I'm just like, well, I'm not a native Japanese person who grew up there. So like, can you not say that like in such an annoyed tone the first time that you say something to me? I understand if you know, you've asked me to clarify and I've said the same thing 3 times, and you know, that would be annoying even if you spoke the same language, right? You'd be like, no, what I'm trying to say is can you say it in a different way?
Is it because what you've written it's actually lost in translation? Like, are you...
This is spoken most of the time. Yeah. I find it much easier to compose my thoughts in a written way because probably
English or any language? Either language?
More in Japanese. More in Japanese because it gives me time to think about and be intentional with the way that I communicate, because it's definitely my weaker language in terms of like vocab, because I think that's a really important aspect of being able to like communicate well, right? So might be a little bit different to lost in translation, but yeah, there's like sense of it's not maybe literal translation, but more in the meaning and the context, and that can sometimes get a bit lost, or
it's more like feeling lost in translation.
Yes, yeah.
Because I could totally relate. It's when you fight, that's when you can really feel the differences. It's, you know, with my parents, if I'm just like, oh yeah, have you eaten, or any of that stuff, easy. But if it's stuff like, they ask me like, why aren't you getting married?
Yeah.
I'm like, I start stuttering. I can't compose my sentences.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
I can't speak right now in Korean.
Yes,
like,
yeah,
let me go write it down.
Yeah, right. I 100% feel you. Although it's probably like less obvious, because even though I think it's far from perfect, I am told that my Japanese is quite like native level. So your receptiveness to that, as you know, somebody hearing that would be different to somebody who sounds like they speak that language as a second language. So I think people forget that I'm not like a native speaker. I am, but I'm not. You know, it's like,
Right.
yeah.
You got to start using a bit of an Aussie accent.
Speak katakoto Japanese.
Yeah.
Like katakoto means like, oh, how do I explain
Foreigner
that? Yeah.
or Westerner.
I don't think there is an English translation for this.
Like
Speak-
tabemas, like you mean like English accent?
Yeah, or very limited vocab, just trying to get by with the very little that you know.
Very
It's the
basic.
nuance. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
When you talked about fighting, because me and my husband, like, you know, sometimes we fight and usually in English, but he can speak Cantonese too. But sometimes when I'm feeling emotional, I'll go back to Cantonese.
Oh, that's
But
awesome.
he doesn't. He speaks Cantonese, but not that well. But then I might just say something like, "You don't understand," but I'll just start saying that in Cantonese instead, because I'm like, but he understands me. So, like that, but there's nothing lost in translation. It's just we're lost in our fight. You know, we're fighting and we're not understanding each other.
I wonder why you switched to Canto. in
Yeah.
those
Not all the
moments.
time, but I'm just like,
You feel like
you
you
don't
can
understand.
express yourself
Sometimes-
more.
Yeah, sometimes. It depends how I'm feeling.
Maybe it's like a subconscious attempt to try something new so you can get through to that person.
It's like English isn't working. so
Yeah,
like,
yeah. It's
I
like
can't-
you're obviously not understanding me in this language, so I'm going to try this other one.
Exactly. But I think by that point, I'm like, you don't understand me. Yeah, I'm like, you're not. gonna
Nothing will
understand me.
change.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I find it the easiest when I'm talking to my bilingual friends, though. So I can like in a
Switch.
sentence
Yeah.
switch.
Oh, it feels
It's not
so
even
good.
like per sentence. It's like just say the first word that comes to mind, because there are quite a lot of words that don't translate smoothly. So there are ways that you can express it. I think I've done a lot of that in this episode as well. But so when you get to wanting to say that, you're just like, oh, what am I trying to say? And there's like a whole thought process that comes with that. So if I'm speaking to my bilingual friends, it's like super stress-free for me. Yeah, I don't know whether you guys find that too.
When you say stress free, does that mean when you stick to the one language, you find your moments where you're like, oh, how do I say that in this language?
Sometimes, yeah, yeah, I think so. Or when you get stuck, I don't know what comes first, but sometimes when you're talking, you kind of get a bit stuck, right? Like, oh, what am I trying to say? And that may not be like a language thing. It may be just a thought process thing. But sometimes like the word in the other language comes to mind first, and then you kind of get a bit fixated on that word, and rather than thinking about trying to gather your thought process or trying to get that together, it turns into a bit of like a translation exercise in your head where it's about like, oh, this is the word that I want to say, and now I just need to explain this word to convey my thoughts. But actually that's probably not the most efficient or effective way. What I should be doing is just, putting that word away and saying, hey, that's not applicable here. Try to think about like how you can say it in English, which is hard.
So you're saying that when you speak to bilingual friends that can speak Japanese and English, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So I don't need to. So
can
even
just
if I get
switch.
stuck, I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh, whatever the first word that comes to mind, I can say, because they'll understand both. But obviously, like in a work setting, or even with my husband, yeah, I think he'll probably be like, yeah, you do this a lot. But when I'm talking to him, I'll be like, Japanese. Oh, like I want to say like, the word irritated, or like oh, the word blah, like an English
that a lot
word, yeah,
with
right,
me.
yeah,
Like, this Japanese, because we're primarily speaking English, so it's probably at least once every conversation, I know would be like, the word, this Japanese word,
Yeah.
that's what I'm
yes
feeling.
yeah, yes. So that fluidness is probably not quite there for me. Probably maybe because I didn't formally study it. Maybe that would be there because you're like when you study a language, you have your foundation. So you won't really learn words that don't really exist in your language unless you learn it contextually through dramas or whatever.
I think you want to give the most accurate information to that person. And sometimes because you have a pool of vocab from both languages, it's a bit frustrating when you can't use this language when it would, be perfectly explain this situation, for example.
Yeah.
Is it because when I'm with my bilingual friends, or if I think about my brother's Cantonese and English when he speaks to my parents, he'll just use half. And then when I'm with my bilingual friends who speak Cantonese and English, we usually speak English, but then sometimes we'll just speak Cantonese. Like we'll just mix it half, like a little bit, depending on whatever we're feeling. Like you could be speaking Cantonese to me, but I could be replying in English if I feel like it. But then I could just, if we keep going Cantonese, I can come back in Cantonese, if that makes sense. If we're in a similar level.
Yep.
But it's harder, like if my parents speak to me, I'm not going to reply them back in English, even though they know English. But because I grew up speaking just Cantonese with them, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, kind of like that. But it sounds like with your bilingual friends, it sounds like you prefer to just stick to one more, maybe, than the other, or more that you want to learn that word or translation. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, when I say my bilingual friends, I think I'm just thinking of one particular friend, because I think sorry if I've forgotten anybody who may be watching this, but I think I only can consider one of my friends here. He's half Japanese, half German, but Australian. And I think we probably speak equal levels. Like we're at the same level both for English and Japanese. So he's with everybody else I meet. So recently I met like a mum friend who is fully Japanese, but she went to international school. So she speaks pretty much like fluent English, but I met her in a Japanese context. So even though maybe, I don't know about her actually, but even though English is maybe our stronger language, it would feel weird now to start speaking in a bilingual way. So swapping between two.
The relationship.
Yeah.
In Japanese.
Or predominantly English now. So I think we're like stuck with predominantly Japanese with maybe some words. But it's kind of, even that is comforting for me as somebody speaking or communicating with her, is because I can be like, oh, I don't have to worry so much about spending the effort to try and translate it. Whereas maybe with like a mum friend who was like fully Japanese and I knew that their English wasn't like that great, I would like kind of take ownership of the effort that's required to translate and communicate effectively, which, I'm not complaining at all. It's just, just another
Depends on the person.
process. Exactly.
It's interesting hearing what you guys are saying. Like even Rockland, you were saying if there's a friend who has a similar
Same
level
of
Canto, you kind of switch.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, I don't know exactly what it is, but we always stick to English. Like we might throw in Korean expressions, but we wouldn't do like a whole sentence in Korean. And I've noticed other friends who are more comfortable with Korean, maybe they weren't born here, they will speak Korean. Like my more Korean high school friends, they're like use Korean like 90% of the time. But then I speak to them in English when I'm with that group. So I don't know what it is, but I think somewhere along the way, like growing up, I must have thought speaking Korean in public isn't cool. I think that's what it is. Like I think I thought, like just speaking English, because speaking in a foreign language, like in school, it's not right.
Well,
like
in school is different.
Yeah.
In school and in this context.
Yeah, so I think because these friends are how I've met them through school, whether it's primary school or high school, in my mind, it's either I just don't use Korean and I don't feel comfortable. But also there's always that complex, like my Korean's not even good anyway. Like when somebody says, oh, your Korean's like cute, or when someone belittles my Korean, honestly, it's like, oh, I don't know why, but I feel so self-conscious. Like I always have to be like, oh, yeah, I was born in Australia. I don't know. It's almost like embarrassing. Like if your Korean isn't that good, maybe it's just with any skill. Like you want to be good at any skill, right? And if someone picks at it, you're like, ouch, you know?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a interesting thing to say. I don't know, like to say that somebody's way that they speak is cute is or like you know, to
I get
belittle.
that
I think
sometimes.
you get that sometimes.
It's like the expression
in Hong Kong,
like the way you constructed that sentence is like, oh, that's
funny.
yeah, it's funny.
And
I
then
think
they actually
think
laugh.
it's
They
cute.
actually laugh at me, and I'm like, what are you laughing at?
Oh,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I do wish that I could speak Korean fluently. Like I'm quite jealous of the
But
people.
I think you are already
You are
fluent. Like I think I'm
Yeah.
fluent too, but it's not to the local level, like not to the native level.
Yeah. And I definitely think my level is a type where I could speak in Korean with my other Korean Australian friends. But
Yeah.
I think it's not just me who feel this, but I think like my friends also feel the same way. Like we feel like our Korean's not that good anyway, so let's just stick with English. Like why use a language that we're not that good at
But
when you
use
can
it with
stick to
your
English?
parents.
Yeah.
But when it's my parents, I'll always use, that's my default language,
Yeah.
Korean. Even with like the local grocery lady or butcher, Korean butcher, I would use Korean.
Yeah.
That's my language of choice. But for
Yeah.
some reason, with my other Korean Australian friends, I always speak English.
That's interesting.
I think that makes sense. It's like, you know, our brains go through a process of making a decision as to, well, what mode is going to, you know,
Work
like
with this.
what's going to enable the most effective and smooth and most understanding conversation. So, you know, with your Korean butcher, I mean, who knows? They may be like, you know, Australian born Koreans, but most likely not, right? So I think there's like a subconscious thing that goes through.
When I got my wisdom teeth removed, which, by the way, Rox is getting her wisdom teeth removed tomorrow.
Which is why we're recording tonight.
Oh.
Top 2.
Oh, top 2, they're fine.
That's okay.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, you good.
my wisdom teeth dentist, he was he was speaking to me in Korean because it was a Korean dentist, right? He's like, oh yeah, all in Korean. And then the moment I found out he's actually like Aussie, I was like, oh, why are we talking in Korean? Oh, let's just talk in English. And we both just quickly switched to English.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about like technical things
Yeah.
with the teeth.
Yeah.
And it's almost to the point where I'm like, oh my
Too
God, why are we
technical.
talking in Korean? We could be talking
Yeah.
in English.
Yeah.
Because it's almost funny, like, why would we speak in Korean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's not what he studied
So we
in,
just
right?
swap.
Yeah. So
That is weird.
I have a question for you guys, kind of related to that because I just thought of it. If you don't mind, but in the workplace, in a professional setting, so like people that you meet at work that are of the same background as you, and maybe consider them like immigrants, so they're not native English speakers. Like, have you ever experienced that?
Like them speaking with each other?
No, as
another
in like
language?
with
me?
like yeah. So you know, somebody comes and joins the team that you sometimes work with, and they're from Hong Kong and they speak Cantonese, and you know their English is not their first language,
Yeah.
so they're not your direct report or anything
Yeah.
like that. But you may cross paths. You will quickly learn that both of you speak Cantonese. What do you do?
Yeah. I think this happened a lot when I worked in Hong Kong because there'd be international people that don't speak Cantonese. There'd be Korean people working in Hong Kong or Japanese people working in Hong Kong. So there'd be a lot of these situations where it's like, hey, we're all meant to speak English, but there's locals working at this place and I speak Cantonese, but I also speak English well. Like everyone can speak English, but then if I'm just going over to my colleague to check on something and we're like chatting about this project or chatting about something, then we might just speak Cantonese because my colleague is Hong Kong born and raised. So, and then and sometimes it's like if we go to lunch, we'll speak if it's like me one-on-one with them, or if it's a group and everyone's from Hong Kong, then I'll speak Cantonese. But if there's one girl, say our Japanese colleague came and we go to lunch, then in a group setting, we'll speak English. But say at the corner there, you guys are just having conversation in Cantonese, but Japanese and a few others are still speaking in English. That's also okay. As long as you guys aren't trying to talk to the group just in Cantonese, because then you're leaving this girl out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of like you need to be mindful.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's rude, because I've heard of her experience with some other Korean colleagues that they're in a meeting, but she's like the only Japanese girl and they're speaking English, but because they're Korean, they might have like just a reaction or something in Korean. But because she's there, she's like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know if you're reacting to something about me. Like, I have no idea, right?
You could be making fun of me and I won't know.
I think that's when it's hard. Like, I think if you have your own thing and you're having lunch together, or you're just talking with each other, no one else is there, that's fine. But if there's a group setting and there's other people that don't understand what you're saying, speak English.
Yeah. Have you experienced anything like that?
Oh, my answer's like if I met a native Korean person, Korean.
Yeah.
Straight away Korean. I'll be like, oh, you're Korean, you're from Korea, and I'll switch to Korean. If it's one-on-one, I'll completely switch to
But what
Korean.
if they were Aussie born, raised, like you as well?
Oh, then English.
Okay,
There's no
okay.
blurriness.
Yeah.
It's very
okay.
obvious for me.
Okay.
Why? I don't know. Still asking the question. But another example is when I was living in Japan in 2010 or 2011, there was a Korean exchange student and we spoke in Korean to each other. Because my Korean was slightly better than, or a lot better than my Japanese. So it's naturally we speak in Korean. But when I went on this other like exchange program in my high school, I met a Korean French girl and she could speak no English. She could only speak fluent French and like decent Korean.
Okay.
So when it was us two, we would speak in Korean. So I think I always just lean to the one I'm more confident with.
Yeah.
How about you?
No, in my previous workplace, there was a Japanese woman colleague who I would work with. And I think for the longest time, we would speak in English, and we speak Japanese now, but I always felt a bit like awkward when we would be speaking Japanese in the office when there were other people around, even if they're not directly included in the conversation. I was always really mindful of that, but also, again, it kind of comes back to, well, we are here and communicating and chatting because we want to connect, and that's what we were doing. We weren't even talking about work, but and you know, I don't even know why I'm bringing this up because, you know, we spoke it in English. We were speaking in Japanese anyway, but I feel like the reason why I wanted to ask is because I feel like another similar situation is coming up because I'm working on a project, and the next phase of that I've seen like the people's names of like people I need to like engage as part of my work, and like one of them, like one of the managers is Japanese. I could tell from her name, and she's going to be able to tell from my name too. And so I'm just kind of maybe dreading. I'm like kind of feeling uneasy about this future interaction that I will probably have.
Little, what do you call it? Like dance.
Yeah. Actually, who knows? She may be like Aussie born like I am. Something tells me that she's not, but
But I think what you said, like, oh, you know, we're by the water cooler. I'm talking with my colleague in Japanese, but we're in a, you know,
public
space.
Other people can hear.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I thought. Sorry, my mic is weird. I think that's the same thinking I had with school. So I'm not using Korean at school because it just doesn't feel right, and I don't want to be exclusive. I think that's what I thought.
I think I ended up being exclusive.
Yeah.
Obviously without that, malicious intent. But it was by that point we were speaking in Japanese on one-on-one conversation, so it felt weird to switch, because for me it's not really about the context, it's about the language that you start speaking with that particular person, and that you just like continue with that forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. The start is
Yes,
important.
it is important.
The start is everything.
Yes. It's hard to change that.
That's true.
But
It's like, okay, so even when I came back from Japan, I was like, oh, my Japanese is so fluent now. Like everyone's like, I think in Japanese, like, because I've been living there for a year. So I actually consciously thought, okay, so when I go back, how am I going to practice it? I thought, okay, well, my partner, he's Japanese. He has a whole family of Japanese speakers. I could just try, like, I could just speak Japanese with them, and then I'll retain my Japanese. So I came back, and I remember in the first few months, I consciously, you wouldn't know, but I consciously made an effort, like with Ryder's mom. I was like, oh yeah, tabemashita ka, da 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 da, everything in like Japanese.
Yeah.
I tried really hard, but it didn't stick, because for them, you guys are used to using English.
They met you in English.
They met me in English. So in the end, we went back to using
I feel like you
English.
use it more now with Nika being born, my daughter being born.
I'm forced. I'm forced to speak. Not you force me, but she can only speak Japanese. So it's making me speak in Japanese again, which it's actually hard as well. Like I kind of can't wait till I can speak in English with her, because it's not my first language or second or whatever. So I feel like I can't bond with her as much.
Yeah.
Gets lost in translation.
I think she understands a lot more English though.
Oh, yeah.
So if that's like, I don't want that to be a blocker for you to have a bond. So,
yeah, but I knew in the initial stages, this is just part of the process. Like Nika only speaks Japanese.
So she knows, yeah.
Yeah, so she knows.
Yeah.
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 I think this is a really nice and long episode to end the season on. Any final thoughts for the final episode, Rox and Inah?
I mean, yeah, again, thank you for listening. I think it was really fun and on brand to be speaking about languages, and we got a Japanese perspective today, which was like really awesome.
Yeah, I'm curious, maybe as like a listener of the podcast.
Yeah, I'm still listening. So from when I joined last time, I've been listening to all the episodes. I think it's been this, like, the reason why I listen remains the same, which is like, because I know you, I'm probably listening to it in a different way, right? Like I'm probably listening to it with like, oh, like this is, I think that your topics are really interesting because they're so relatable as a person who grew up with like two languages. You talk about like Australian things, so it's kind of like not nostalgic, but it's always fun to listen to. So I've really enjoyed this season, and I can't believe you asked me to guest star.
Oh
my gosh, you
in
need
two
to come
of
back.
them. Yeah, I'll be
back.
back. It's very comfortable here. I sometimes forget that we're actually recording, so we end up doing some longer episodes. I think the last one was quite long as well.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you for listening, Inah, and everyone else. My final thoughts are, it's amazing to have, I can't believe we had 50 episodes out. I'm sure you haven't listened to all of them, but definitely check out the older episodes because, they're pretty interesting, I think. Even as someone who does a podcast, when I listen back, I'm like, oh, wow, that's kind of interesting. But definitely check out all the other episodes, and we'll see you in the next something.
Because we're gonna have like a little break. I think Julia has some travel plans. I've got some travel plans. We're gonna kind of try to get inspired, but we may or may not come back at in the same format. But we will be back.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
I'm excited
to
know what's in the pipeline.
Alrighty. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.